Okay, so you have a test coming up, and we just wanted to review all of the different types of problems that you'll be seeing on the test and all of the things that you need to know how to do. So to start, we are simplifying square and cube roots. So these are great to use a calculator for. So we're going to do the square root of 256. So most calculators have the second and the x squared buttons, but some calculators are slightly different. So remember, square root, we're trying to figure out what number times itself will give us this big number, so 256. And then our calculator says that it is 16. This time it is not a decimal, but if it is a decimal, you need to write that down as well. Okay, don't round to the whole number, you want to round to the hundredth. So this answer is 16, but remember that 16 is half of your answer. It could also be negative 16 as well. So we use the symbol called a plus minus to show us that our answers are both positive 16 and negative 16. And that's because two positive 16s can multiply together to get 256, and two negative 16s can multiply together to get 256. So these are all square roots because they don't have any numbers sitting on their shelves. We assume that it's a 2. These guys are cube roots. They have 3's sitting on their shelf, so we need to find the number that can be multiplied by itself 3 times to give us this big number. It's slightly different in your calculator. You want to make sure in your calculator you have a 3 sitting on your shelf. For this calculator, you type 3 and then second and this guy, which will show you that there's a 3 sitting on the shelf. Some calculators have like 3 and then an x sitting on the shelf. That means the same thing. Then we're going to type in our number, and this is our volume that we're trying to figure out our root of. And then our answer is a decimal, which is fine. It's 4.82 when rounded to the hundredth. So that was what we're going to put for our answer. Okay, now we are going to write fractions as decimals. Okay, so in order to do this, all we need to do is look at what numbers that we have, and then we're going to transfer that into our decimal. Okay, so remember, this fraction line in a fraction stands for divide. So in your calculator, you can do 1, the top number, divided by, which is the fraction line, 4, which is the bottom number, and then press enter. This decimal is your answer, and now we've turned our fraction into a decimal, which is 0.25. Let's talk about number 11. Notice the difference between 11 and 9. 11 has a whole number out in front, and 9 does not. So that means that on 11, your decimal is going to be 4 point something. You would take whatever number's in front, and that would go to the left of the decimal. Now the process is the same. We're going to type in 22 on our calculator, and we're going to press the divide by line because that's what a fraction is, and then 25. Our answer is 0.88. We already have a 4 in place, so the 4 is the first number, and then 88 is the number after the decimal. Okay, now we are going to write decimals as fractions. So remember, there are 2 types of decimals you can write as fractions. There's repeating and terminating. Repeating decimals are shown by a line above the number that shows what's repeating forever and ever. And terminating decimals stop, that's what terminate means, and they do not have a line. Okay, so the magic number for terminating is 10, and the magic number for repeating is 9. So for terminating, what you do is you write the number that's out after the decimal on the top part of your fraction. Then underneath, you're going to count how many numbers you had after the decimal. So we have 1, 2, 3 numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3 zeros and a 1 in front. The pattern is the same for repeating. We put the number that's after the decimal on top of our fraction, so 23, and then we count how many numbers are after the decimal. Zeros are numbers, and they count as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've done these as examples so that you could see what the pattern is, but we still have to simplify these 2 numbers. Some calculators will simplify them for you, but if you don't have that option, you can figure out the biggest number that goes into both 878 and 1,000. You can start at 2 and work your way down from there, which is a slow but effective process. So 439, and then 1,000 divided by 2. And if your calculator does this for you, that's fantastic. Oops, sorry. Now I'm thinking. Okay, nope. I don't think it can go any further. Okay, this is our final answer. Sorry, I was trying a trick. The trick is if you add your numbers together and then 3 can go into it, then 3 is divisible up by both of them. But, yeah. Anyways, sorry, moving on. Okay, so, like, for instance, 2 and 3 make 5, so I know 3 can't go into 5, so it can't go into 23. 2 can't go into 23 or 999 because they're not even, and nor could 5. And those are the main 3 numbers I check, 2, 3, 5.
One of the things you can think about for your repeating decimals is a rhyme. So if there's a line, use a 9. So remember, if there's a line over the numbers, use a 9 on the bottom.
Okay, the last part, well, I guess you have 2 more sections of your test. So we need to order. We're going to order our numbers from least to greatest. We have a number line here to help you. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. And then the answers go here. Now when we're talking about the answers, we want the letters that go from the least, the smallest, to the greatest, which is the biggest number. I like to use the number line because it's pretty fantastic. So A is at -1, so I would put an A here. B is at -2.5, so -2 and halfway is B. And I like to write down what it is if it's not on a number. That way I can remember. C is at 2, so to the right, 2 is C. And D is at -0.5, so negative, not quite 1, because I have the 0 in front, so halfway, so there's my D, -0.5. And then E is at 1, and then a little bit more, so there's our E. Now notice that my lines are not perfect, and that's totally fine, but it gives me an idea of where the letters are supposed to be from least to greatest. Then I would write my answer as it is shown on my number line after I wrote them in. So I have B, A, D, E, C. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is we need to classify numbers, and we're classifying rational versus irrational. So remember, if we look at this word rational and the root of it says ratio. A ratio is a fancy word for fraction, so anything that can be in a fraction is rational. Remember on the front side we put repeating and terminating decimals into ratios. So again, just as a reminder, what we did was we took these decimals that end, terminating, and these decimals that repeat, and we made them into fractions. So they are rational numbers. Irrational numbers are numbers that go on forever, and decimals that go on forever and do not repeat. Pi is a great example, and notice there is a pi here, so pi is irrational. 105 can be written as a fraction if we put a 1 underneath it, so it would be rational. The square root of 2, for this one, you need to check on your calculator. So square root of 2, oh crap, press that button. Okay, so it's a decimal that goes on and on. Notice that it doesn't stop and there is no repeating. So this guy is irrational. -1.2, this is rational because we can put 2, it's a terminating decimal, as a fraction. So this one is fine. And then again, we have a fraction here, so it is a ratio, so it's rational.